Helps to have the microphone unmuted, doesn't it? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Divide by Zero show. I am your host, Jonathan Peterson. This is pretty new for me to do it this way, so we're going to be learning a little bit together. Wanted to try out a new kind of style. I've done some streaming of me doing some programming and working on a particular project. But I want to kind of I'd really like to get some other people that we could talk to, and just kind of have a dialogue about different things in the tech world, like new products, and builds coming up. We might talk about that. Talk about some tools, and maybe some different specifics in web development, like doing asynchronous patterns or repositories, or just kind of that sort of thing. I wanted to get some guests on for today's show, but didn't work out this time, so hopefully we'll be able to do that in the future if I am able to keep doing these. So today we're going to be talking about some of my sort of must-have developer tools that I always install whenever I create a new development environment. Something that I've got to have installed in order to work. And so we're going to go over 5 of those. They're not in any kind of order as far as like better than one over the other. They all kind of work in tangent for me. I'm going to try to do them in a bit of a logical order rather than any kind of like ranking or whatever. So the first one we're going to cover is Stackblitz, and you can find Stackblitz at the website here at stackblitz.com, and it's a really nice tool for doing prototyping or working in kind of an isolation. If you've got a problem in one of your front end tools, applications that is, you can set up a Stackblitz and isolate your problem specifically to something that you're trying to fix. And that helps eliminate, the rest of your application as being the issue. You can install npm packages on it. They've got a lot of great starter templates as well, so it's pretty easy to get going. So I'm going to flip over to a VM that I set up for the stream, and we're going to take a look at some of those tools. So let's get over there. There we go. How about now? Okay, sorry about that. This is a different OBS setup, and apparently I forgot to add a audio source. Did I mention that I'm doing something new here? Yeah. So let me back up here. Go back to Stackblitz homepage. Okay. So, rewind a little bit here. So Stackblitz has these kind of templates. I primarily work with the Angular ones, but there's React as well. There's blank JavaScript and blank TypeScript projects. And so if we go into the Angular one, and we'll give this a minute to spin up here, you can see that it's just a very simple Hello World application. It kind of works like Visual Studio Code, if you've ever used that before. Not quite, obviously, but there are some similarities there. And so we can, it does a live compile. So if I change this to let's say divide by 0 show, get rid of that because I don't care about the version number, and you can see it's pretty instant there. So again, it's really cool for again, just kind of prototyping stuff out. One of the other features that I really wanted to show is did I just close that? I probably just closed that. Let's see if I can open it again. So I created this test Angular project. This was just done with the Angular CLI, set that up on there, and pushed it to GitHub. So nothing special at all. So what's cool, and if I can keep track of my tabs, this is Stackblitz has imported my GitHub project straight into here. So the URL for this is stackblitz.com/GitHub, and then whatever your username or group name is / whatever the project is. So that's like github.com/owenston/stream-angular. And so I instantly have my project in Stackblitz. This is a really cool feature that they have. And again, if you were trying to work on something, or you wanted to set up a proof of concept to show somebody else, this is a great way to kind of instantly import some of those projects into Stackblitz, so you can play around with and change stuff without actually downloading the repo or doing anything like that. One thing that I wish that Stackblitz could do with this GitHub integration, and Stackblitz peeps, if you're out there listening, here's a feature request for you. So I'm actually signed into Stackblitz with my GitHub account, and since I've brought in this project, I wish that there was a way that I could change this and be able to push it back into the repo. Now, from what I understand from the documentation, if you change anything in the project, it will automatically re-import. So the GitHub is the source of truth on that. But at the same time, this would be a really great, I'm stuck at, the doctor's office waiting room or an airport or something like that, where you didn't bring your laptop that has VS Code or Visual Studio or something like that on it, whatever your editor of choice is. And this would be a really nice way, I think, to be able to work on those projects and just push whatever you've changed back into your GitHub repo. You can download the project, so I mean you could import it from GitHub, download it, and push whatever changes back into GitHub if you wanted. But I do kind of wish you could push that back in there. Let's see, there's something, I guess, so you can fork the projects as well. So if you wanted to start off from this project, you just fork it. Works like GitHub. You get a new URL here, and it's your own, and you can save it, and doesn't, you could keep your own copy of it. So you've also got the dependencies over here. So this will automatically pull from your package JSON, but it's really nice that you can add stuff straight from here. I can't remember if there's a type ahead. Nope, there's not. But you can also remove packages, and that'll install it for you as well. So that's another neat feature. Something else that you can do is you can copy paste files directly from your machine into there. So you just drag and drop it, and it imports all those files for you. When I was trying this with an Angular project, it was a little bit weird with the existing files, excuse me. So maybe that's just my fault for not doing it quite the right way. But that is a nice feature. You can just kind of drag and drop stuff straight to there. And this is what I was talking about a minute ago with the import from GitHub and how that works. So they do have some premium stuff that you can get as well. I haven't looked too deeply into that, but do know that that's there. I think that makes the ads go away, and also, if I'm not mistaken, I think you get private projects that way. So that's Stackblitz. Again, it's really good tool. They also have PWA. There it is. And so this is kind of a self-contained Stackblitz on your desktop, so you don't have to go to the website. And in my work machine, I usually have this pinned here, so it's really easy to start up a new project. So that's my super simple fly-through explanation of Stackblitz. I really enjoy using this. It's a lot better than using something like Plunker's CodePen or some of those things. The server works a lot faster, I think, than some of those other ones, and you get the file structure which you don't get in something like JS Fiddle or what have you. So it's a really nice tool. So let me let's see here. Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do now, and I think I've done my OBS setup here correctly. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at a Visual Studio project that I created. It's just a simple MVC application with some Entity Framework in it. We're not going to cover too much about the project itself. I just wanted to use that as a basis, show some API calls and what we can do with these next set of tools. So one of the things that we're going to cover is Fiddler, and you can find that at Telerik's website, telerik.com/fiddler, and it's a web proxy tool as a probably oversimplification of what it does, but it allows you to monitor your web request. So if you've got an MVC application, you can see what's going on sort of behind the scenes. You can see it pull down images. You can see it pull down your API request. And so I primarily use it for the API request part of it. It's really interesting if you leave it capturing with no filters. You can see all the creepy things that Chrome and Microsoft Windows does while you're running that capture, and see all the different payloads that they do, and it's kind of disturbing sometimes, the telemetry that gets exchanged. But some of the other cool features of Telerik is the replay feature, and I'm going to show that here in just a second. And my biggest complaint for Telerik, just to keep things even, is there's no dark theme. And why don't you have a dark theme, Telerik? Users have been asking that for years. Come on now. It's 2020. Everybody's got a dark theme. So that's kind of my main complaint about that. But we'll also see Postman. And Postman is an API tool. If you've ever used something like SOAP UI, it's very similar to that, except it's a lot more modern feeling, and it doesn't use Java, which is a bonus more than anything else. So we're going to take a look at that real quick, and the different ways that I think Fiddler and Postman can kind of work in tandem, and some of the differences and some of the ways that they're the same. So let's flip back over to my VM. Oops, nope, not that button. Transition here. So real quick, the Fiddler website, you can download that. It does support other OSs besides Windows. I've never tried it on any of those, but that's nice that they've got those options there. And Postman you can get from postman.com. So let's take a look at this web application. And what you'll see is that what I have is some albums. And so I actually had I knew I was going to do that. I set this up so that when I pulled up the screen, it wouldn't come back anything. But I flipped the comment, so go me. It actually works. It's not supposed to. Oh, it's still building. Yay. I hate that. I really wish Visual Studio would just kill whatever the process is that is locking the files. Just kill it. Alright, so this is what I meant to have show you, is there's nothing. You already see it working and probably saw why it was working, but let's pretend for a moment that you didn't. So if you're doing web development, probably what you would do is open the network tab in Chrome and look at the specifically the Ajax or the where is it? Oh, I already had selected the XHR here, and you could see that what we got was nothing. So we sent a request to home/albums, which is where my fake API endpoint is, and we got nothing. So with Chrome, it's pretty easy to tell some of these things, but once you refresh or change the screen, for instance, sometimes that's gone, or you didn't get it, or, Webpack refreshes Angular on compiles, so sometimes that gets lost. In addition to that, what I find useful about Fiddler in particular is if we go here, you can see that I have a whole bunch of requests, and let's clean that up and get rid of those. And so if I look at the inspections tab on this particular request, you see that there is nothing here. There's nothing in the raw, there's nothing in the JSON. So what I can do is I can press R, and I can also, right click and replay. and I still got nothing. So I didn't have to refresh my application at all. This would be really useful, I think, in if you're doing desktop application like WPF or something like that, where you wouldn't necessarily have access to like the Chrome's network tab. So I know I should have albums. So let me go look at another tool, LinkPad, and you can get that at linkpad.net. You do get a kind of free version. I do recommend getting at least Pro. It's not a bad price. It's pretty nice to have. So I can go over to LinkPad, and I've got two things set up. So let me take a little bit of an aside here real quick. So there's a couple of connections that you can do. There's built-in drivers. You can also do your own context, which I'm going to show in just a second. You can get more drivers. Unfortunately, the LinkPad 5 drivers for something like MySQL, SQLite, etc., they don't seem to be updated, so I can only see them for LinkPad 5. So hopefully those will get updated. But it does come with it's very easy to connect to like SQL Server. It does come with a SQL Server Compact database as a demo. So as you can see, I can do C# expressions really easily and do categories take. There's also, you can do other things with where and counts and that kind of stuff. And you can also do SQL, and so you can write something like, start from categories, hit run, and you get the same thing. So it's really nice that you get the different kinds of statements that you can write. So let's go back to this. So what I did is I set up a connection to my reverse engineered SQLite database. So I have this database context in here, and it just, again, I didn't set any of this up, I just reverse engineered it. And so what that lets me do is I have my context directly from the DLL of the application, which is really neat. And so we can do things like take 100. We can write C# expressions there. We can do, where clauses on this. We can say title starts with I think I did that right. There we go. So you can see I pulled back the albums there. So at a simple level, this shows me that I do have albums. So the database is fine. So I should have albums, but nothing came back. So if I look at what I flipped earlier, accidentally, you can see that I did where is false. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you can see it. Where is false. So obviously that doesn't work if you're used to Entity Framework or Link to SQL or anything like that. So with that switched, what I should be able to do is build a project, and I should be able to come back to Fiddler, and I should be able to press R here, and it'll take a second for it to build, and now I'm getting JSON results back from the inspector. Okay, so now we know that the API is working. So something else you can do with Fiddler is you can go into, let's see, replay from composers. So Fiddler has a composer tab. You can start from scratch blank. You don't have to replay it from one of your existing requests. And so you can figure out what you want to do with that. If you wanted to pass in ID of 1 or something like that, if your API supported that, you could do that, and you could hit execute, and you would get a new request. So this is also really handy for again, doing some prototyping on your APIs. I find that using Fiddler in this particular way is not the easiest thing, at least in my opinion, to use. If you get into anything that is more complicated, like doing post, because you have to define your request body here. So I think that's where Postman shines instead. So if you look over at the filters, I want to show this here. I almost always have this use filters and show only if it requests localhost. So this normally works for me if I'm testing out or trying to track down issues with my own applications and my API requests are local. So obviously, if you're going to test something like a Google API or a Firebase API or something like that, you would want that to be unchecked. I cannot remember if you can semicolon off of this or something where you could split it out and have multiple filters on here. I would have to double check on that. One thing to note about Fiddler, it does use a proxy SSL. So it basically intercepts all of the traffic. So some things don't like it when you do that, and like Postman actually won't do the requests with Fiddler running unless you have a particular checkbox set up for that. So that about covers it for Fiddler. Again, it's a really nice tool to have running if you're having issues with your API endpoints. It's pretty easy to use for that. So Postman, let's go over to here. This is my fake endpoint. And so Postman is an API tool also. And so what we can do is we can set, any of the kind of verbs for our HTTP request. So GET is pretty straightforward. I'm not doing anything fancy with this at all except putting in the URL, and I hit send. And so that gives me a nice prettified version of whatever the JSON or XML or whatever your return payload is. And of course, you can look at the raw and stuff like that as well. It does have a couple of headers that it auto adds, like it came from Postman, and a couple of things like that. So you may or may not want those to be there. But you can also add, if you had an authorization endpoint, you could add the author bearer token here and whatever the value is for that. It also allows for different environments, and so you can set up environment variables that you want to use, and you can set your header values from those environment flags. Somebody I saw use this also was using these pre-request scripts and these test scripts, which are JavaScript tests, I believe, and was basically using that to generate a couple of tokens for the header, and then in the test was run after you hit send, was grabbing values out of the response body and using that to set up the next chain of requests. So that was pretty interesting. You can also set up collections. So if you had an API endpoint you were going to test, again, something like Firebase, you could set up, let's say Firebase here, and you can add requests into that if you make those frequently. So that's a nice feature as well. So both Postman and Fiddler are good at showing what our API is doing outside of the application, which again is a really nice way to prevent issues like if you're running an Angular application or something like that. You might want to run either of those tools as a method of isolating issues. So is it actually the API, or is there something wrong with our Angular or whatever we're using for our front end? And so the I lost my train of thought. Hate it when that happens. Yeah, so that covers those three tools kind of in conjunction with how they could work together. Obviously, they're that's way oversimplified of the full potential of all of those applications. If any of you who are part of those teams are watching or listening, I'm interested in having some guests on to talk about some different things, as I mentioned in the beginning. So Stackblitz, if I missed something, come talk to me. That'd be fun to do as another episode, to have one of you guys on, talk about your roadmap or something like that. Likewise to anybody else I've mentioned so far. And so the last tool that I want to show you, and looking at the time here, I noticed that I talk way faster than I anticipate that I do. And so we've only been half an hour in, which is a lot less than I thought this was going to take. But the last tool I want to show you is Snagit. It's by TechSmith. It is a screen capture tool. It does a lot of things beyond that, but I just want to show off some of the things that you can do with Snagit. And for that, I'm going to flip back over to my VM. All right, so let's say that you had somebody who was doing QA, and either you were a QA person or you were a developer getting a QA ticket, and however that worked out for you, let's say the QA person was saying, well, that the albums don't return. So this would be a place for a screen capture tool, and so I just press print screen, and this is the capture interface for Snagit. And you can see that sort of caution tape around different things that I'm moving over. And so what that's going to do is a quick region. So I could actually click right here and it would take a screen capture of this part of Chrome or the full thing. And I can also just drag and drop like this. And so I can take an image or a recording. So I take an image, go away. You can see that it pops up into this editor. And what's nice is it's got all kinds of tools like this where you can drop arrows and callouts and say, this works for me. And one of the things that I find that I use quite a bit from Snagit is these steppers. And what I find nice about this is that I can take a screenshot of something that I want other people to be aware of how to use, and I can say, if I was editing an email or a wiki or something like that, I can say, if you look at number 1, this is the first thing, it's gray because of Bootstrap's striping, table striping, and then if you look at number 2, you can see that it's white, because that's the opposite row kind of thing. It's also got some other shapes like that, which can be rotated. One of the other nice features, if I can find it, is blur, and it's got a couple of different types of blurring. So again, if you wanted to show that the list did show up and had items, but you didn't want those items to be viewable from your screenshot, you could do something like this. And again, there's a couple other kinds of styles that you can use in there. Something else that you probably saw is that I can do a screenshot again, and I'm going to do a video. And so I can actually capture a microphone and system sounds if I want. I can toggle both of those on. I can hit start recording. And so I can do whatever I was going to do here. I can show that I can refresh, and there's no spinner. Maybe that's what I want to show to a developer, that there's no spinner there for when the information loads. And then I can stop the video, and so there you have it. So you can also do some pretty basic video editing, like if I wanted to cut that part out, I can do that there, make it shorter. You can save certain kinds of videos to GIF. They have to be a certain length for them to do that. Otherwise it won't work. But you can save these as MP4s as well, and share those. Speaking of sharing, it does have the option to share to a bunch of different places, which is nice if you get those connected in. I wish they had like a Microsoft Teams integration or something like that. So there's a couple of integrations I feel like that are missing, but again, it's pretty easy to just like drag this, into some other window that you want to share it to, like Slack or Teams. So this is another nice feature. This guide from a template. You can do these kind of things, and it'll autofill some of these things out for you. They do have a Snagit certification that you can run through, and it's a couple of courses on how to do some of these more advanced things. It's a nice set of guide videos on how to use Snagit. I think that basically covers Snagit as well. Snagit, again, is available at techsmith.com/screen-capture.html. And they do have a cost. It's $50. It's not bad at all. I use it every day, multiple times a day, so it's a pretty good deal. I normally don't recommend these maintenance things, but this one-year maintenance thing, package edition, is actually pretty good. I just started using that because you do get upgrade reduction costs here. So if you buy it 2020 outright, it's $50, but I think next time it's like $24 or something like that. Yeah, it's $25. But if you have the maintenance feature, it's only $12.50. So once, if you do an upgrade twice, it's, you've already covered that $12.50. So it's not bad as price goes. Okay, so like I said, that was over a little quicker than I really anticipated. I'm hoping to have, again, I'm sorry I keep mentioning this, but hoping to have some other people on at some point and just kind of a conversation back and forth about a different topic. MS Build, Microsoft Build is next week. So I hoping to get some time to kind of digest, the new things that are coming out of that, and probably do another one of these episodes trying to just kind of rehash and package some of the interesting highlights or things that I thought were interesting anyway, and just kind of see how that goes. I do have some plans. Maybe the week after that, have a guest on who's going to talk about some interesting COVID-related things. Potentially, don't know for 100% certain on that. And in case you're watching this in the future, we're all stuck in COVID quarantine, which is very unfun, not fun. Unfun's not a word. Not fun. Which is why I am in desperate need of a haircut. But what can you do? So unless there's somebody in the chat who would like to talk about something in particular, I'll probably go ahead and sign off. Going once. All right. Well, again, I think that'll do it for me today. If you liked this, I am streaming it onto Twitch and to YouTube. It'll be on YouTube for longer than it'll be on Twitch, just by the nature of the way that Twitch works. I'm hoping to get this off into like SoundCloud and Spotify and Google Podcast as a podcast. That's going to take some time to take the stream down and cut the audio out and push that back up. So that'll probably be in the next day or so, I would guess. Again, I think that's it for me. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it'll be slightly more put together next time. This is pretty new for me to do it this way. So with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.